Have you ever felt anxious when you ask your team to do something? Like you already plan how you will be fixing what they've done before your managers will see it. Because you know they will screw up. And now, while you're working at 10 p.m. fixing your team's mistakes, some other manager is getting a promotion because they invested this time into their career. But how do managers get to this stress-free point when you know that you can delegate to your team with a peace of mind? Let's talk about how to build a reliable team. I don't know if you can hear, but it's a pouring rain outside. I'm in Amsterdam. It is June and it feels like rain just never stops. I compiled for you a 5-step framework. Using it when you delegate will not only help your team to get the job eventually successfully, but will also gradually improve their performance and ease your mind as a manager. Part number 1, be clear on what. Let's start with the simple one. Do you remember the scene from Devil Wears Prada? Miranda Priestley is saying, I need 18 skirts from Calvin Klein or something.
I need 10 or 15 skirts from Calvin Klein.
Okay, what kind of skirts do you?
Please bore someone else with your questions.
The problem with it is when you say, I just want this, is usually not specific enough for your team to actually do what you expect. It is possible though to work in this mode with your team, but to get there, you need a very high level of mutual understanding, which develops with effort and time. You know, when you reach the point that you have such a common context that you don't even need to specify all of the things explicitly. But until you get there, it is on you to be specific. I bet you can recall when you used to be an employee and your manager would tell you to do something that you would not completely understand. It is frustrating, but apart from that, it actually lowers the chances that you will do what is needed. Sometimes we, managers, can be ambiguous, like almost on purpose. For example, if we don't know what's supposed to be the end result ourselves. I don't know, our manager jumped in, asked us to do something, and now we delegated and asked someone from our team to do it. In this situation, we actually shouldn't throw our people under the bus and give them a task that we don't ourselves understand. So there are two options there. Either you clarify it first, or you decide what do you do together with the person you delegate to. Some managers have micromanagement habits/tendencies, so they kind of avoid telling clear what, because it helps them retain control along the way. Maybe they don't even do it deliberately, maybe it's just a habit that they've adopted, but it's nice to check on yourself if you do something like that. Or sometimes managers just don't have a skill of creating a clear goals, and for that the business standard is SMART goals. I can bet you already know this framework, but just in case, this is a quick reminder on what it is about. Finally, to be clear on what, you need to explain the reasons and give context. Don't just give a what. Explain the situation, the context, maybe the stakeholders. It is helpful when you share the what to also share a little bit of why this task or this piece of work should be done. With that, you give a person a wider view, which is always nice. And also explain maybe just a little bit, but the situation, the context around the task. Because otherwise, without a context, there is a chance that they won't be able to make a good quality decision and they will be running back to you asking questions that you maybe could have addressed in the beginning by better explaining the situation around. Part number 2, be clear on how. In real life, we're not only caring about what, but we actually care about how. I'm thinking about a cliche manager from like movies who maybe is explaining what should be done, but then whatever the cost, you just go and do it. But in reality, we also do care about how things should be done. For example, we expect a person to follow a certain process. So together with explaining the results, we're also explaining a process of how this person will get there. Like first you need to do this, then that, and this is how you will get to the best results. Explaining this how part would actually help people to reach a desired outcome successfully. Also, it is us as managers who often define the standard of things. So for example, if you have a certain quality bar that you expect regarding a certain piece of work, you have to talk about it. Give examples like this report I expect in this format, because otherwise it kind of turns into a guessing game when your team is bringing you something and you're not happy with the quality of it, and then you critique them and they go and they change it, instead of you explaining define what is the standard that you expect upfront. And this is important, if you set for your team a certain quality standard, when you receive the result of the work, actually check this quality standard, because otherwise it can create a feeling in a team of like investing the effort for nothing, which is super frustrating. We don't want to do that. Finally, when it comes to how to do things, you have objectively more experience, so help them, give them what to watch out for. For example, I really like to think about myself when I did this thing first and ask myself a question, something around what would I wish to know before doing it for the first time myself. And this is exactly what your team would need to give you a good quality result. Part number 3, use correct behaviors. Here's the thing, our teams are very different, and sometimes in your team you have people with different seniority levels. You have someone who is very junior, very excited about work, but just don't know what to do, or you can have super senior people who you don't even need to tell anything and they will do the job perfectly without you, and all kinds of stages in between. So a big part of leadership job is to identify at which stages each particular your team member is in right now and show the behaviors that would help them at this stage. Let's break it down. As managers, we can adjust our behavior by 2 parameters. First is how directive is our behavior, and the second, how supportive is it. So by adjusting these 2 types of behavior, we can find the best proportion for a particular person in your team. So imagine that you invited a very junior person in your team, or maybe even intern. It is their first time in the department, they're super excited and super pumped. They have zero idea on what to do, but they're ready to do it. In this case, you have to compensate for them not knowing what to do. So you have to be very directive in a way that you have to explain how things should be done. And you don't need to overinvest into getting them excited even more, because they're already quite excited. What they need from you more is actual explanation of the work. This is a high directive, low supportive quadrant, and the behavior that we use there is basically directing. Now imagine the time passes and this person is getting the gist of what should be done, although still require a lot of explanation and hand-holding. But then here's what usually happens in reality. People cannot be very excited about something for a very long time without support. Basically, your junior with time is starting to get a little bit tired. The honeymoon phase that charged them in the beginning is over, and now their commitment is getting lower and lower. This is a dangerous stage that actually requires the most effort from you as a manager, because this is high directing and high supportive stage. So their competence is still moderate, but their commitment is getting lower. So it is very important moments that you need to detect as a manager and adjust your behavior. And from you, it will require a coaching style. It is consuming, I get it. But the good news is that with time, people usually learn how to do things. So the more this person learns, you will need to give less and less directions to them. And with that, we're moving to low directive, high supportive quadrant, which stands for a supporting behavioral style. Imagine that the person actually developed a high competence, but the commitment level is kind of shaky. To help a person at this stage, you need to show support. For example, you can start giving this person a little bit more freedom, or maybe delegate some of your decision-making responsibilities. So it's not just about, hey, you can do it, go for it kind of talk, although some people would appreciate that as well. Like, if you don't feel that your manager believes in your success, it can be a little bit demotivating. So showing this can also be a part of a supporting behavior. And finally, the stage where all of the managers wish all of their team members to be. And it is low supportive and low directive stage. You have a very senior person. This person knows what to do, knows how to do it. They don't need for you to direct them a lot, and they also don't need a lot of other type of support from you, because they're confident, they know what should be done and how it should be done. They have a necessary decision-making power and authority, and they feel comfortable at their place. Like, imagine that you're approaching a star expert in your team and start giving them excessive directions, like small things about what and how you expect for them to do. although they already know it. This is kind of annoying. And it's kind of the same with supporting behavior. So you practically need to show them the goal and leave them alone. Now, I understand that the first 3 behaviors may seem like a lot of investment, but in reality, we waste much more energy and time as managers into showing the behaviors that are not needed for a person at this stage. So it is extremely important to actually identify at which stage a particular person is and show the exact behavior, the exact level of direction and support for the person to succeed. Part number 4, equip with authority. Quite often, to set your team for success, you need to give them authority. It is honestly a bit sad to acknowledge, but I have a feeling that sometimes we ask our teams to do something that is easy for us because we have a power or a vibe of authority and kind of refuse to see that they don't. We kind of just want to say, hey, go for it, and avoid thinking about the fact that if to do that, they need to talk to a director. Maybe director would not even talk to them because you yourself would not experience this problem. So for your team to succeed, they need to be equipped with the necessary authority. What can it be? First, it can be a decision-making power. For example, you explicitly allow a team leader to do some type of project-related decisions. You two agree on that, you explain it to a wider team, and you go for it. You can give people more ownership. And it's not when you sit in the room and you're saying, okay, you have the ownership now. No, in reality, it is about allowing them to make mistakes, to derive learnings from these mistakes. The ownership comes through that and not through a formal assignment. That was like a Harry Potter move. Finally, if needed, you can declare a more formal authority. In some companies, it's actually very helpful. Like you share with everyone, including your management, that, I don't know, until this amount of money, a project manager is your team is making a call and what is above comes to you. Things like that make rules of the game be more clear and make the whole work much more smooth. Part number 5, address learned helplessness. This one is my favorite, and here's what it means. Imagine that you made managerial mistakes in the past, always do. For example, you would first delegate, but then you would take over the task because you feel too uncomfortable or you're not confident in the results. You do all kinds of micromanagement, and here's what it leads to. Your team is kind of getting less and less active and interested and engaged because they already had an experience where they, for example, would put the efforts, but then half of the way it was taken away from them. This is one of the examples of what is called learned helplessness. So they're basically thinking, why would I even put an effort if I know that it would not lead anywhere? So if you find yourself in a similar situation, it is extremely important to do a damage control. Like, how do you fight this feeling in a team of, yeah, no, whatever I do, the result will be the same, so why even bother? Acknowledge that no one is perfect, everyone makes mistakes, sometimes things happen, and show the commitment to make things different, personally, from your side, as a manager. And then comes the most interesting part, and it is to talk to them. Ask them questions, maybe what type of work they would prefer to do if given a chance. Maybe this thing that you or someone else gave them last time, the task, was not 100% aligned with their personal interests, and that's why they're not really excited about anything right now. And of course, situations can be different, but it's always good to do what you like than what you don't. And it is great if we as managers can arrange this for our teams. So have these conversations, and in general, allow an open communication. Be open to talking to your team and start giving them small things that are aligned with what you've discovered. Because we're all people and we all need sometimes small wins and acknowledgement of our effort. Finally, celebrate it. Celebrate results, celebrate small wins, because this is what, in my experience, managers neglect the most. The job is done, let's move on to the next thing. This can be very damaging for a team that especially used to have a negative experience before. By the way, if you often work under pressure, I made a video recently about how I work sustainably under pressure, so check it out if you like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you there.